I've been racing since I was 7 and watching sprint cup drivers since I was before, even younger than 7. I always wanted to do it. I always wanted to be on TV every weekend and race, and the best part is winning. It's definitely what I love to do. I mean, anything with wheels, I'll drive.
He's dyslexic. From the time he was in kindergarten to 1st grade, we determined that he had a reading difference. Just in difficulty starting to read, keeping up with his classmates, making that connection from words on a page to a concept.
I always knew that learning wasn't easy for me. Learning at school wasn't easy for me, I should say. I just couldn't learn in a classroom at like a regular average classroom atmosphere, and it was just harder for me. I could never remember things that were happening because I always wanted to go race.
It's painful when your child is crying at night with study cards, knowing that that test tomorrow is just going to be torture. The Forman School has a terrific product for helping kids figure out how they learn, really teaching them to understand themselves and how they learn. It's friendly and it's welcoming, and there are teachers and other adults around that are always giving them encouragement and as close to parents as they could possibly be.
And then we have this great group of students who are talented and bright and creative and dynamic, who oftentimes their talents have not been recognized in a traditional academic setting. So I think for parents, as your children are younger, you've got to be the champion for them. To remember what your son or daughter does really well and the talents they have, and not let your child forget that. While you struggle in that area, say around reading or writing or math or whatever it may be, and they start to see that about themselves in general, rather than saying, you know what, there's an area that I don't do so well in, but that's not who I am. And it's helping them not lose sight of the things that they enjoy, not lose sight of the curiosity that kids have, and the inquisitiveness that they bring.
It was important for our kids to see us as their parents advocating for them, and it gave them the confidence to advocate for themselves, and that they weren't being disrespectful, they were merely asking for what they needed in order to learn.
I think the main thing is being positive to your kids. Get them into something they love, whether it be photography. It doesn't have to be a sport. Photography, art, anything. Just have them, they need something, you need a passion in life, you need a hobby that you really love and enjoy to do.
Hopefully someday he'll make into Sprint Cup Series in NASCAR. He's pretty tenacious, so I think he's got a good shot at it. I think he's a great driver. I think he's got the talent to do it.
Another message for the kids out there that are struggling is you can never have ups if you don't have downs. Just because you're down doesn't mean you should stop, because the only way you can shoot an arrow is if you pull it backwards first, so you can let it go and shoot you somewhere great.
So we just saw a really uplifting film of a kid who overcame a major obstacle in his life. And to discuss this, I'm going to ask Dr. Steve Schlozman and Dr. Ellen Braaten, who's an expert in learning disabilities, to help us all understand about these kinds of problems and what we can do about them. Ellen, could you tell us what dyslexia is?
Well, dyslexia is a problem decoding the sounds that make up written language.
Wait, what do you mean decoding?
Decoding, for example, let's say, take the word cat. Cat is made up of 3 different sounds or phonemes. Ka-at. Kids with dyslexia have trouble both hearing those sounds in isolation and then also bringing them together when it's time to read them, and then matching those sounds to a symbol.
And then reading them.
Actually
reading
That's
them.
right. So it's a problem both at the hearing level and also at the visual level, and where those 2 things come together.
And also writing them.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's encoding, and that's even more difficult
that's a further stage of decoding.
Exactly.
It's so interesting because we usually think of dyslexia as primarily around reading. And Gene and I are both child psychiatrists. We get patients sent to us all the time. They'll sometimes carry this diagnosis, or a parent will say, I think my child has dyslexia. We actually aren't trained in this. How does one go about making this diagnosis?
Well, if you're wondering if your child has dyslexia, you need to get a more comprehensive evaluation that looks at multiple areas of a child's functioning, like their ability to think, their ability to reason, reading skills, written language skills, attention, and memory. And parents can get that either through the public school or through a private evaluation.
But now, aren't there other associated symptoms or problems and not just dyslexia itself? Don't things come in packages?
They oftentimes do. Not every child with dyslexia comes in a package, but many of them do come in a complicated package. And things like visual spatial problem solving, or being able to comprehend what one reads or even hears outside of the phonological
So
realm.
how do parents know? I mean, do they see that their kids are not hearing them right? Do they not follow directions? Do they? I mean, what are the things that parents can actually look for? Or do they go to their teachers to find out?
Definitely they should go to their teacher. So if a child is struggling in first grade learning to read, that's a sign of concern. But even before that, even in preschool and kindergarten, kids who have trouble learning color names or learning the names of the letters, that can be a red flag, particularly if you have a family history of dyslexia, because dyslexia runs in families. So,
well, I was just thinking that wonderful video that the mom was saying, you know, how hard it was for her to watch David studying and knowing that he just wasn't going to be able to perform. So I wonder if that's one of the signs that no matter how hard your kid tries, they're not going to be able to pull it off.
Yes, and especially in the younger grades, reading is usually pretty easy for kids to learn how to do. By first or second grade, it just kind of comes. It's almost like a miracle for some parents. And for kids that don't have that, that's a cause for concern.
Okay, so let's talk about the treatments, and I have two questions about treating it. One is, what specific treatments can we have for our kids? But David goes to a special school that many people out there may not have access to. So what other kinds of programs are there for people who don't have that kind of means?
Well, there are a lot of programs, and we know exactly how to fix dyslexia. And the programs that are recommended are ones that are phonics-based, that are very multi-sensory, incorporating a lot of senses into the learning process, and then are sequential, where one skill builds on the other. And every school system has to be able to give a child that kind of program if they have dyslexia, because that's what we know works.
So can you say this again? So phonics-based,
multisensory, and sequential, meaning one skill builds upon the other, because kids with dyslexia need that very sort of sequential kind of learning.
And wait, you say, and every kid is, by federal law, has to get the kind of help they need if they've got a problem.
Yes,
so
exactly.
What can parents do? What can we do, Steve and I can do, to advocate with parents, to get these kinds of services?
One of the things I really feel strongly about is they need a good evaluation. You need a roadmap. You can't just go in there and say, I think my child needs this help, without knowing really what kind of help they need. So that's the first thing that I think parents can do, is to get a good evaluation that provides really, like I said, a roadmap of things that they need, and then go in knowledgeable about what the disorder is.
So David said that every kid should have a passion, and the head of school said that every kid needs a special interest. What about the kids that don't have a passion?
Well, most kids do at least have an interest, and I think that's something you have to cultivate in kids with learning disabilities. But I also feel very strongly about the fact you have to remediate the learning disability, that a lot of kids don't have interests and passions, because if you can't read and you're in 5th grade, the world really isn't such a great place.
But isn't the bottom line that you have to develop this positive self-esteem to be able to move ahead into whatever you want to do?
You do, and in the case of kids with learning disabilities, I think that positive self-esteem can come out of overcoming something with the right kind of treatment. And that's the nice thing about dyslexia, is we know how to treat it.
We can overcome it.
And they can overcome it, and what a wonderful path to great self-esteem.
That must feel great.
Exactly.
For the kids and the parents.
Yes.
So I hope this discussion has helped us all learn about dyslexia, and there's more to learn. If you have other questions, go to the website, and I hope that this has been useful.